interlocutors are born. Resistance is futile. Your life, as it has been, is over. From this time forward, you will service us.
No! We will not service Washington.
Mr. Worf, fire.
Well, welcome to another exciting live episode of the Renegade and the Rambler show. And I, of course, am the Renegade. I am here almost every week. And Jeff actually was able to talk the boss into letting him off work today. And Suzanne is here. She's going to talk prepping, hopefully, with us for a few minutes at least. So, Jeff, how was your busy week?
Oh, it's great. I always love this time of year because Friday was our qualification day, so I got to go shoot guns and stuff like that. Monday, I'll get to shoot the gas grenade launcher and shoot CS all over the place. Make us cough. It's fun. So I love this time of year. I enjoy going to range. I enjoy qualifying to a certain extent. It's a pain, but it's fun.
Do you qualify on an indoor range or out in the open?
Oh, it's outdoor. It's outdoor. So if it rains, you're out there in the rain. If it's snowing, you're out there in the snow. Because honestly, if I was in my tower post, because that's what I have, if it's snowing or raining, I have to perform anyway. So, okay, yeah, Suzanne's going to take off for a bit. So, anyway, it's been a good week. This is my 2 weekends off in a row. And then I'll be back to, let's see, so this weekend, next weekend off. And then I will be in Utah. Since Suzanne's not here, I will mention that. And I'm not quite sure what we're going to do. I'm going to be at PrepperCon. Suzanne's out there. I know that we have Boyd Craven's going to be there. He's an author, a post-apocalyptic author. We have a few different people. If Suzanne was here, she could tell you the people that we hopefully will have on. We will probably do some live shows from there. I hope there's going to be a panel discussion that Suzanne's going to be moderating with all the authors, because I know there's Boyd and a few others. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure which authors are going to be there, so I'm not going to announce any. Other than Boyd Craven, I'm positive is going to be there. But she's going to moderate a panel discussion between those authors about their books and stuff. And we're going to hopefully bring that panel discussion live. I'm going to take my stuff out, the computers, the mics, the soundboard, try to get it all set up, and we'll try to run it live on Radio Co. And hopefully Boyd's listener will be, and our followers and all these other authors' followers will put it on their Facebook page, and people will be able to come over and listen to them give their panel discussion. So I know we're going to do that. We hope to do some live feeds from there. I'm not sure when they'll be, because it's going to be whenever we have time to do it. But I'll break into the schedule through the day. I'll post something up on Facebook so you'll know that we're going live, and then you can look for us on there. I don't know that I'll be using any Facebook. I may just be on Radio Co Live. So watch Facebook, everyone that's listening, so that you know when we're going to jump in live. We may even do some Facebook Live. Suzanne even mentioned doing some of that. So watch Facebook. It should be a good time. We're going to have fun out there, and we will let you know when we're on the air.
It sounds like a load of fun. I get stuck here with work. I get to drive in and out of the city every day while you're out there having fun shooting guns. And I don't know, the gas doesn't sound like much fun, but the shooting, everything sounds like fun. But
it's not bad. It's fun. It is fun, but it's not. I mean, it's because of my job. I mean, I can't have my job if I don't qualify on the rifle. So I have to qualify. So there's a little bit of pressure. It takes a little bit of the fun out of it because I am shooting for a score. I have to get a certain score to keep my job. So it takes a little bit of the fun out, but it's still fun. I mean, I always enjoy going out the range and shoot. I've probably been out the range probably 3 times this week with yesterday, or with Friday, excuse me. So anyway, enough of that. Enough of my job. I try to forget it when I'm not there. So this weekend, next weekend, I will be doing a show. Let's see. Today is what? The
6th.
So the 13th. Yeah, so I will be available to do a show next Sunday night. The following Sunday night, I know I won't be. I'll be out in Utah probably on Sunday night. I will be enjoying stuff because on Monday morning, I'm getting back in the truck and I'm driving back east. So, and I may stop in Denver to see a good friend from here in Pennsylvania that lives out in Denver now. So I know I won't be here the following Sunday. So that's kind of where we're at.
You're going to drive that whole trip, boss?
Yeah. Yep, because I don't like flying, and I can drive out there. The fuel it's going to be a wash. Airline tickets, fuel. By the time you add that I'll need a car, the rental for the 4 or 5 days out there would be well over what I'm going to pay for fuel. So it's just, it actually will save me money. And plus, never mind. I won't go into it, but it's going to be, it's a wash. Money wise, it works out for me just to drive out.
Well, just be careful. I mean, I'm trained to drive like that, but I just be careful.
Oh, I lived out there. I've driven I've driven that straight through before, 30 hours straight. I've done it. I mean, when I lived out there, I'd come back east, and I don't do that anymore. I plan on stopping and sleeping. So, because I'm not as young as I used to be.
DOT says you can't drive like that. Be a good.
Well, if I was a truck driver. So anyway, enough about the trip. I'm looking forward to going out there. We're gonna have a good time at PrepperCon. That'll be Friday and Saturday, May 18th and 19th. So if you're in the Utah area, come out and visit. We'll be at some convention, some place in Salt Lake. Look it up on Facebook. I think there's PrepperCon on Facebook, so you can find out exactly where it is. So anyway, come out and visit. We'll have a good time.
Well, I'm sure it sounds like an excellent time to go have out there. So anyway, since Suzanne's a little predisposed of, do you want to get into the fun school stuff that we had lined up for tonight's show?
I'm just going to start off with this Newsweek article. LGBT mega donor pushes discriminatory anti-discrimination bill in Pennsylvania. So this is here in our home state, Daniel. That's the only reason. It was one of the reasons why I picked it. And this is written by a Monica Burke on 4/26/18, and it originally was in the Daily Signal, according to this article at Newsweek. And it starts out, Pennsylvania was founded by William Penn as a haven for political and religious diversity, but now a new bill in Pennsylvania poses an existential, excuse me, for the English-speaking people out there. I'm tired. Existential threat to that history of freedom and tolerance. State Senator Patrick Brown, Republican, Lehigh County, recently introduced Senate Bill 613, which would amend the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act to include sexual orientation and gender identity as a protected class in anti-discrimination statutes. At face value, the bill promises freedom from discrimination for all Pennsylvanians, but if the liberal activists promoting the bill have their way, SB 613 would punish Pennsylvanians for their religious and moral beliefs. It's just like all these other ones. What they'll do is it's supposedly tolerance towards people, but some classes are more protected, have more rights than others. Christians will be very much discriminated against. There's down in the article, they're talking about a guy that ended up closing a business he's had for years because they're going to pass local laws, and he's just decided I'm just going to go out of business. I'll move on, go do something else, because he just is not going to fight because there's going to be a lawsuit. He's going to be bankrupted trying to defend himself, when he'll lose because the courts are going to side with these these laws that are discriminatory against Christians, in spite of the fact that our state constitution is very clear about the ability for people to worship as they see fit. So here we go again. This is just another example where government is taking away natural rights, our natural right to worship as we see fit, just as now this whole push to confiscate firearms to take away our natural right. So government is going after natural rights. And so now it's going to come down to, what are the people going to do? What are people going to do? Are they going to obey? Or are they going to do, as Jefferson said in the Declaration of Independence, it's their duty to abolish that government that is acting as a tyrant. So, I mean, it's going to come to a time that it's going to take some civil disobedience, is what it's coming down to.
Here's an interesting part in that article. I was scrolling through it. It says, this is the $1 billion donor that's given his soul over to Satan. We're going into the hardest states in the country, he told the magazine. We're going to punish the wicked. I'm sorry, sir, but I think you have the whole wicked part upside down here. There are a few sins that Christ calls abominations. This is one of them. It's repeated over and over and over again. I believe that fits the definition of wicked. Just to enlighten you. Not you, Jeff, because you know this, but you get where I'm going. The whole idea that we have to have child sacrifice and then accept this, and yet the majority of Christians either A, don't even know what's going on, or choose not to say anything because they're afraid they're going to get shunned by their neighbors, I find just appalling.
Well, it doesn't surprise me one bit. We are entering definitely a post-constitutional era. Again, we understand where the Constitution is applied, but they're not even applying it to themselves. I said it the other day in a post, and I'll stand by it, that we are ruled by a top-down, Soviet-style command and control central government. And there's all the conservatives out there will scream and holler at you if you don't pledge your allegiance to this government, don't stand for their anthem, don't prostrate yourself at their temples in Washington, D.C. It's become the god of the government. And, I'm not going to apologize. I will not pledge my allegiance to this government. They're Marxists. They are tyrants. And I will do my little secession in any way I can. And I will refuse to comply with their edicts when it is unconstitutional. And every federal firearms law is unconstitutional. I refuse to be told how to live my life by the federal government when it's unconstitutional. And actually, the state of Pennsylvania is duty bound to interpose or nullify to protect me as a citizen of the state of Pennsylvania. But they won't, because they're in on it.
Oh, yeah. As long as the money from D.C., as long as the checks keep cashing, they're in the pocket of the Fed. Lincoln was very successful in getting that one through.
So here we have, now they're going to pass the law here in Pennsylvania, and it's going to, they're coming after the church. They're coming after Christians. Their intent is to destroy us. If they can, this one guy is losing his livelihood. If you are opposed this, they're going to use this show. They could actually try to go after our jobs. And that's where this is all going to end up, because we oppose their agenda, because their agenda is that there's only tolerance towards them. There's no tolerance towards anyone else. We must comply with, and we must accept their lifestyle. It's not about tolerance. It's about acceptance. We must accept it. And since we won't, because we're not supposed to accept the lifestyle. It has nothing to do with that person. It has everything to do with the lifestyle. And that's the sin. We're not going to comply. And it's going to start costing us jobs. It's going to start costing us money. And if they have their way, eventually it's going to cost us freedom and our lives.
Well, I believe that was talked about several times in the New Testament about persecution. Part of that article said just last month, the city of Philadelphia halted the placement of 2 Christian foster care agencies, Catholic Social Services and Bethany Christian Services, because of their religious beliefs about the nature of the family. So we already have this going on, and we don't have that, quote, fairness law or whatever the devil they're calling it. It's straight out of the devil. And everybody's silent on it. Nobody's saying 2 words about it. Now, luckily, I go to a church where we do say 2 words about it and we preach against it, but the vast majority of churches won't touch this issue.
Well, they won't touch abolition. Most churches are good pro-lifers. They're good with, let's see here. So I don't know if I have that article. Let me pull these up here. Nope, I don't have that article. I know it's here somewhere. It's in one of my preps here somewhere, and I'll find it. We had that article about the heartbeat bill. I don't know if you shared that.
Yeah, I shared it. I believe I said I put it on my page. I said it's a good gesture, but what will Iowa do when the federal judge tells them they can't do it? Will they stick to their morals, or will they back down? Hopefully they stick to their morals, but history tells them to back down and power to the Fed. Can't do that because we're not about saving lives. We're about murdering innocent people. And there was another post I had put on my page regarding that very thing, that in the Old Testament, Christ, or not, well, it wasn't Christ, it was God, it was Jehovah, repeatedly judged Israel for shedding of innocent blood. And my post basically had said, do we think that we are exempted from God's laws and God's word? If God was willing to punish the nation that he chose to put his name in, which was the Jewish people at that time, do we think we're going to be exempted from the same judgment that he passed on them just because we're America? No, that's not going to happen. God doesn't respect persons, and he doesn't respect nations. The scripture even goes as far as to say that every nation that forgets God shall be turned into hell. Clearly, we don't teach God anymore.
No, I'm this, and it is not just here in the United States. Sorry about that. I'm sitting here working on another screen here. Even in Canada, and I thought about this. I don't know whether I was going to do this or not, but I'll just touch on it because we're talking about the whole idea that, sin is being called good and good is called evil today. And we were warned of that in the Bible. And here we have another example of it, The Independent, an article. This was, let's see if I can find a date. This is an old story. I thought it was a newer story. All right, then forget it. This is an old one, but okay. I know there's there's something more recent, but Never mind. I'm not going to go. It's just too old. I thought it was a news story. Anyway, we have, let's see here. Are we going to take a break, or are we just going to keep rolling? Because we can just keep rolling if you like. All right. We'll change gears a little bit. I think we've hit that enough. I don't really want to talk about the homosexuals and the LGBTQRS LMNOPs anymore. So let's just switch to a little bit of economics. New York City drops minimum wage bomb on restaurants. The decision to raise the minimum wage to $15 in New York City has prompted restaurant owners to take matters into their own hands, according to John Bluestein, the CEO of Heartland Brewery, who called the lack of response by the local government offensive. He said Mayor Bill de Blasio has not responded to several letters in which Bluestein voiced his concerns. I'm taking it personally now. Bluestein told Fox News' Stuart Varney on Varney & Company on Friday. He said restaurant owners can absorb 6 minimum wage increases in a 3-year period. So you have all these liberal people in New York City that support all these people that institute these plans. And then when it starts to affect their businesses, now they're all up in arms because they can't absorb 6 increases in what did they say, 3 years or whatever it was, in 3-year period. Yep, 3-year period. So it's kind of funny. In their defense, they're correct, and government should not be setting minimum wages. It's none of their business. That's between the employee and the employer. But in this case, they're going to chase away businesses. Some of these businesses are going to close. Some of them are small chains, mom and pops in the city. I'm sure it's costing them a fortune to stay in business anyway. And now you're just going to increase the costs, and a lot of these places are just going to close. They did the same thing in Seattle. I can go back and find stories of a lot of businesses out there closing up. I know there's some stories out there where these people claim that they're doing wonderful because of it. I don't buy it. There's no way economically that they absorb this and keep doing business as usual.
Unless their prices were so high and they never raised their prices during it, which just
do you get anything when you're in the city? Because I know you drive down to the city now. Do you ever buy anything in the city?
No. Well, for one, but the main reason I never buy anything in the city, because I would love to buy their fuel because it's cheaper than Pennsylvania in most cases. But that aside, there's nowhere for me to park.
Right. Okay. No. If you could park in the city, I've only been in that city once. And I plan never to go back to New York City ever. I did not like it. And I had I kind of now, it's been 12, almost 13 years since I was down there. And then 13 years ago, I think I got 2 slices of pizza and a bottle of Coca-Cola, a 20-ounce bottle of Coca-Cola. And I think it was darn near $20.
I was going to say
2 slices and a soda.
But now
up home, it'd be just under $10.
But not only do you have the insanity of them raising the minimum wage, did they give you a top line number on that minimum wage hike they want to go to?
No, they're going to the top. $15 is that number that they've been fighting for. But as soon as they get there, it's going to be $25 because they won't be.
15 will be the poverty line.
Right, 15 will be the poverty line. See, what people don't realize, when they raise the minimum wage, costs have to go up. So the guy that was making $7.50 or $7.65 or whatever, or $7.85, I think that's what it is in New York, who was in New York for a while, $7.85. Everything was priced at $7.85. He's going to make that money. Now that it's 15, everything's going to be priced because now they've doubled the cost for the labor. So the prices go up. So he's still making $7.85 and spending money like at $7.85, except he's making 15, and now the prices are sucking up the difference in the wages. So it's just like he was still making the $7.85, it's just you've created more costs, and it's
But
a
see,
wash.
here's the interesting thing, Jeff. It's not a wash. You actually lose in this because now you're in a federal tax bracket where
Right.
before 750, you weren't in a federal tax bracket, or at least not the big one. At $15 an hour, now you're into the 15% bracket. I think they changed it, so I'm not sure what the number actually is now. But it used to be about a 10 to 15% bracket. If you made under $10,000 a year, you didn't have to file taxes at all. But if you make over $10,000, well, now you got to file taxes. Now you got to have health care. Now you got to have all these other little vainglorious socialist programs that have been flowered upon us. Wait a minute. Did we request those? Oh, no. They were forced down our throat.
Yeah. How's that taxation with representation working out for you?
Working out about as well as taxation without representation. I think
in reality, we have taxation without representation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Who are they representing? They're not representing their constituents. So who are they representing? They're representing their corporate or welfare constituents. That's who they are there to. It's all about the money. They're not there to represent us. So we really are back into a situation where you have taxation without representation.
And
people are happy with it.
We have an elected oligarchy. Look, they're already talking about, I think it's Jeb Bush's son running for president in a couple of years. Seriously? Do we need another Bush in the White House?
Evidently we do. And just wait. I'm sure we'll get an Obama there. Or we'll get another Clinton. She'll run under her maiden name. I don't know what her married name is. I don't care. But we'll have a Clinton. We'll have an Obama. We'll have another Bush. The Bushes will have a long line of people. Jenna, whatever. Somebody will run. It'll just be we have a monarchy. We have an elected monarchy. You have a monarchical lines that just reappear every few years.
An elected oligarchy where we go to the polls and we elect family member after family member like it's a monarch or a dynasty, when what we should be doing is going, you guys haven't done anything you promised. You promise us the moon and back, and you promise us the moon and you deliver us sardines. And
the problem is people expecting the government to do something. That's the problem to begin with. In reality, we should want them to do nothing. Stay out of our way.
What was that famous line that JFK said that he made famous that everybody's forgotten? Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. We flipped that completely on its head when LBJ came out with the whole Medicare deal. And then we just keep heaping on top of it like, well, it's like with the teachers. Okay, well, public school education's failing. What we need to do here is spend more money. We spend more money. What do we get? The same. And then what's their refrain? We need more money. It's like
that whole discussion I had earlier about conservatives. I asked. I mean, we have them all the time. I have them say that they're happy with what we have. And so I ask, well, what are conservatives conserving? They're conserving Marxism. I say this all the time. Go read the 10 pillars of communism from Karl Marx. Read the 10 pillars to one form or another. We have all 10 instituted by the general government in Washington, D.C. We have a Marxist government. But we have conservatives that are happy about that. They're happy with what we have because they have the Constitution. They have their constitutional rights. Gosh darn it. They like their Constitution. Well, the problem is the courts has turned the Constitution on its head, where the Constitution was designed to be a limiting document on the general government. And that's what it is. If you read the preamble to the Bill of Rights, you are not guaranteed any rights. The Second Amendment gives you no rights. You do not have a Second Amendment right. Get it out of your mind. You don't have one. All that was a restriction on the general government. The entire Constitution is a limiting document on the general government in Washington, D.C. The courts have turned it on its head, and now it is a limiting document on the states and the people. They use it to bludgeon us over the head. Try to have a business without government's permission. Try to put a pond on your property in the West somewhere and get fined $75,000 a day. Try to defy them now. The Constitution is going to be a bludgeon they're going to bludgeon you over the head with.
Hey, Jeff, how well did that limiting language in the Second Amendment work? Can I go buy a machine gun?
It worked great up until 1860.
1861 or 62 was the first confiscation of firearms by a U.S. sitting president. What was it, 1790 something when Washington marched federal troops into Western PA?
Yeah, it was about 7 years after the Constitution was, so it'd be about 94 or something like that, I believe. I'm not quite sure, 1794-ish.
No, in all honesty, 1794-ish is when the Constitution died, because the Constitution was supposed to stop a federal government from marching federal troops into a state and enforcing federal tax laws, because there wasn't supposed to be federal tax laws, because they were supposed to be issued to the states. This is the same thing Henry constantly railed against.
See, that's the problem, and that was the problem when that Patrick Henry identified. He railed against the fact that they do have a taxing power. Excuse me. That was the problem in the Constitution. That's what Henry complained about, that the Constitution gave the general government taxing power. And he said that they were going to use that and they was going to destroy the states. And he was 100% correct.
Yeah, we should have never left the Articles of Confederation.
No, we'd be much better off under that.
Because the advantage with the Articles was any one state could literally say no, and the thing was dead. All the states had a veto power, so it had to have unanimous approval. And it was built that way mainly by Franklin because they didn't want this style of government, because this style of government wreaks tyranny. It's just a stepping stone that slowly steps its way into tyranny. We've been walking down this path for almost 30 some years.
Yeah. Well, that's why I've read a bunch of Patrick Henry's speeches. I read Brutus, which was Robert Yates, if I remember correctly. And then I read some of Governor Clinton from New York, and I can't remember what pseudonym he wrote under. I just don't remember now off the top of my head. But these anti-federalists, who were actual federalists, the Federalists were nationalists. Their intention was to make a national government, to make a government that vetoed over the states, that lorded over the states. The states had to prostrate before, and that's what we ended up with. By going with the Constitution, Henry warned that this is where we're going to end up, and that's where we are. And again, you have conservatives that will argue with you until they're blue in the face, scream at you, call you all manner of names, because you're calling out this sacred cow that they worship. This is a god of government now. The national government is the god of the people. And like I said before, it's a Marxist government. It's a command and control, top-down Soviet-style government. So
it's the god of Christians. People that so-called profess to be Christians will bow down in front of the flag and do obeisance to it upon an order from the king, president, that acts like an elected king. If the president were to come out, Jeff, and say, you will bow down to the American flag and do obeisance to it, I dare say 95% of Christians would bow to it.
Well, they've already equated the Constitution to be holy scriptures, so why wouldn't they?
Yeah, they show their ignorance in this. They literally believe that somehow Christ came down in Philadelphia, handed Madison a copy of the Constitution, and miraculously they all said a prayer shook Jesus's hand and took the document to the states and got it ratified, and it became the law.
All right, here's going to be the end all to the discussion on that. For those of you that listen that think that this was a divinely inspired document from that one pseudo historian that pushes this constantly, a pseudo historian, pseudo Christian that pushes this notion that the Constitution is a divinely inspired document. If it is divine scriptures, is it infallible? Daniel, is divine scripture infallible?
Divine scripture, yes.
So if this is indeed inspired, just as scripture is, as the Holy Bible is, then how can we be in the mess we are today? Because it obviously does not work. So if you're a Christian and you're going to say this is divinely inspired, then you're calling God a liar. And I'm pointing at you on purpose. I'm calling you people out on this. You're calling God a liar because this is not, God lied then. If God set this up, he lied.
Article 5 of the Constitution proves that it's not divinely inspired. Do you say how?
Right.
Because if it's divinely inspired, it doesn't need amended. It's perfect. Right. Because scripture doesn't get amended. Scripture is scripture. When you leave an ability to amend the document, you admit that it's fallible. You admit that there's faults in it that either you don't know about or that you do know about and you're hoping get corrected by somebody else because you don't have the political power to do so.
Here we go. We amended the Constitution to outlaw alcohol, and that may have been a good Christian thing to do. But then a few years later, we amended it again to allow people to drink alcohol.
Because we realized
this is very divinely inspired.
And see, if it was divinely inspired, and the majority of, well, they used to be the majority, conservative Baptists, which is what I am, would believe that drinking alcohol is wrong, then we wouldn't have ever put it back in the Constitution saying we were doing away with prohibition. We would have left it in. Of course, prohibition doesn't work. When you tell people they can't do something, the first thing that a rebellious people will do is do it to prove that you don't know what you're talking about.
See, here's okay. This is where my libertarian streak comes out. Because honestly, I think that there should not be any drugs that are outlawed. Heroin should be, if you can buy it, buy it. Do I think that you should use heroin? Absolutely not. I think you're a fool if you use heroin. Do I think you should be drinking alcohol? No, I think you're a fool for drinking alcohol. But I also believe in free will and personal responsibility. It's your responsibility for how you live your life. I'm not responsible for how you live your life. This is libertarianism. I'm not responsible for you drinking alcohol. I'm not responsible for you smoking cigarettes. You get sick from smoking the cigarettes, it's on you. I shouldn't have to pay for it. It's on you. You made that choice. You're an adult. You made your free will choice. Now live with the consequences. You got drunk, you drove, you killed someone. You're going to pay the consequences of your decisions. It's not my job to bail you out. You want to do heroin? Not my job to bail you out. I'll try to tell you that you're living foolishly. But in the end, am I responsible for your choices? If I told you you're doing wrong and you continue to do it, no, I've done my part. I've told you where you're acting wrongly. You're sinning, if you will. And now the choice is yours. That's libertarianism. As long as you're not hurting me. Now, if you're a heroin addict and you steal from me, now you've broken a law that you're infringing on my rights, my property rights. Now we have a problem. Now the law has to get involved. That is living free. We don't need government running your life for you. If you want to make foolish choices, I always say this with federalism too. Federalism, you know what? New York State sucks. Absolutely sucks. Pennsylvania's catching up quickly. Some states in federalism are going to be pretty good states. They're going to do all right. Well, I'm watching Oklahoma, and if Oklahoma elects Dan Fisher, they're going to be on their way to being a really, really great state. New York State sucks. California sucks. That's federalism. You know what? Oklahoma shouldn't have to pay for California's suckiness. If they want to have all those have all those alien friends in, they can keep them. But once they leave that state, now Oklahoma's free to kick them out. Oklahoma shouldn't have to pay for them. No housing, no medical, no education, nothing. They go to California. They wanted you there. They'll pay for you there. I'm not paying for you. See, that's federalism. Good choices, bad choices. In life, good choices, bad choices. Free will.
I'll educate some of our listeners on this. The term sanctuary city is actually an Old Testament term. There was to be cities that if you were to, say, accidentally kill somebody or accidentally defraud somebody, you could run to those cities, because if the person you defrauded, mainly if you ended up killing them, they were allowed to execute judgment on you if they caught you in the way. But if you got to the sanctuary city, then you got a trial. The term sanctuary city is the Old Testament terminology of this. We've turned it almost on its head, but nowhere in the scripture does it say the person that was defrauded has to pay for the sanctuary city. The sanctuary cities were set up in such a way that they were self-sufficient, normally run by the Levites. And when you got there, you weren't guaranteed you were going to be allowed to stay. You also, if the person found you in a sanctuary city, he could ask for a trial of the elders. Now, if the elders protected you, as long as you stayed in that city, you were fine. The minute you came out of that city, the person you defrauded or the family member of the person you killed was allowed to execute judgment on you. And there were several stories in the Old Testament where this actually happened. But so if we took this whole deal, okay, so California is a sanctuary state. The minute you cross from the California border into Oregon, Utah, Oregon, Nevada, Arizona, you are then outside of the sanctuary city and are thereby under their laws. In Arizona, they'll deport you for it after you serve a prison term. I don't know what they do in Nevada. I think they do the same thing in Nevada. But that's how a sanctuary city works. You don't get to come in via California and then drive across country and go to Pennsylvania. That's not how sanctuary.
That's what we have today. But that's what we have today because the federal government's going to foot the bill. So we're all on the hook. So California, they may want them there. Then keep them there. They have to pay for them. Once they cross that border, nothing should be portable. They should get nothing unless they get to another state that wants to give them everything, and then that state should be on the hook for them too. It's fine. But in between, they should get nothing. And those other states shouldn't be bailing out, say they're going to New York or they're in California. So they drive from California, go to New York. New York and California shouldn't get a penny from any other state. They should foot the bill 100%. If they want them there, pay for them. That's federalism.
Arizona should not be on the hook for California. California should not be on the hook for Arizona or Pennsylvania or New Jersey. Guess what? If New York builds a highway in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and it dead ends, that's on New York. That's not on Pennsylvania. That's not on Washington, D.C. It's not on New Jersey. It's on the state of New York. That's how you handle this. If you did that, California wouldn't be able to afford immigrants to begin with, and thereby this whole sanctuary kerfluffle goes away in about 30 seconds. California's already partially bankrupt. So
you notice that convoy did not go to the Texas border.
No, they went to the California border. They went.
And why would that be?
Across Mexico to California, because Texas would have turned them around and sent them back.
That's right. The Texas DPS would have sent them on their merry way back to Mexico. They drove thousands of miles through Mexico to get to the U.S. border, so claiming they needed sanctuary. They drove through a country where they were not molested. Nothing happened to them for thousands of miles. they could have got sanctuary right there. If sanctuary is what they really wanted, Mexico, they drove right through it. But Mexico doesn't want them because they're sending them up here because they know that they're going to collect money
out to their people on how to get across the border and get around customs. But no, it's not an invasion because they're not coming across with arms.
Well, again, we can discuss that. Could be argued either way because in reality, if California lets them in, they're not illegal aliens technically because they're alien friends being let in by the state of California. But again, here's where the problem gets. Federal government then foots the bill for them. And that means all the other 49 states have to pay the bill for them allowing alien friends in. And so they're either alien friends or they're alien enemies.
Well,
if they came across bearing arms, they would be alien enemies. We would be at war with them.
Right.
But because they're coming in and they're being allowed in, they're alien friends. And if California wants them, keep them. Otherwise, we're never going to end this until Washington, D.C. stops paying the bills for them. Period.
Right. The only way you can do that is under a federalist system where the state is responsible for the people they bring in. Currently, right now, the state go, oh, yeah, you come in and, oh, Mr. Federal Government, you're flipping the bill for it. The dirty secret, though, is both parties in Washington, D.C. want these people in here because they want them to vote for them. Because they know the American people here have just about had enough. So they're trying to delay your vote by bringing them in.
Well, I don't know if I have this. Nope, I don't have that article. I know where it is, but I'm not going to go get it. We have 13 minutes. Maybe I will get it. Let me go find it. The problem is we are getting to this point, as we talked earlier, that the evil is good and good is evil now. And it's going to get worse. And quite honestly, we are not far from them attempting gun confiscation. They have to do gun confiscation to go from this relatively soft tyranny. And I say that a little tongue-in-cheek now because it's not that soft anymore. Going from this relatively soft tyranny to the hard tyranny that we are going to be living under before long, because they have to get the firearms out of our hands if they're going to move on and take absolute control of us. And that is the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is control.
What did Germany do first under Hitler? Did they take the guns from the Jews, or did they march the Jews to the concentration camps?
Well, they took the guns in the 1920s.
Then they marched them to the concentration camp.
It was
10 years later.
It was in the 30s. Excuse me. It was in the 30s. They confiscated firearms,
and they cloaked it under the whole small arms treaty or whatever they had to do because of World War I. But they got to take the guns first before they march you off to the concentration camp or the reprogramming camp or whatever crazy camp where they're going to kill you anyway is called now. It'll probably be the loony bin. But they don't want armed rebellion in the process of enforcing their iron fist. So what they'll do is they'll do their darndest to get the firearms away from you, so you have no means to resist them when they come through to collect you and your family.
I knew I'd find it eventually. I was looking for this article. It's from May 3rd by a Benji Sarlin. And this is from NBC News. We have a Democrat congressman has proposed outlawing military-style automatic or semi-automatic assault weapons. Again, that term that's meaningless. Enforcing existing owners to sell their weapons or face prosecution. So here we are. Now we have Democrat Eric Swalwell, California, that is basically talking gun confiscation. If you don't comply, they will arrest you. So we have this assault on, and this is an assault on our freedom and our liberty. And just as we were talking earlier about the whole homosexual and the LGBTQRSLMNOP crowd, this is an assault on your religious liberties. This here, what we're talking about with this guy is an assault on your ability to be self-reliant, self-sufficient, and be able to defend yourself. And we are going to have to make a choice. At some point, we're going to have to apply the Declaration of Independence, as Jefferson told us we have a duty to do, or we're going to have to comply and we're going to live under the tyranny, the hard tyranny of a Marxist communist government. Thoughts, Daniel?
Yeah. I don't see a way out of it. I think we're going to end up with either communism light or communism hard until a collapse or a revival hits. Hopefully a revival hits before all this goes down, but I don't know. I don't think that's not going to happen anytime soon.
They are marching us towards a conflict at this point because like I said, I will not comply. My natural rights are not up for a vote. Democracy does not have a vote over natural rights.
Well, see, here's what I like about California. California hides behind their Constitution and says, well, gun rights aren't guaranteed under the California Constitution. They're right. However, they also tell you that you have to swallow the LGBT crap, but they have an amendment on their books that was voted on by the people that says marriage is between a man and a woman.
Exactly. They amended it, but they fought the amendment. It's a legal amendment to their Constitution, and it states exactly what you said. But they ignore that amendment, just as they do ignore. I wish I had it. And I wish Suzanne was available because she could tell us what their Constitution actually says. I think there is they might have a slight defense of firearms in their Constitution. It's pretty, I think it's pretty weak.
I think it's a tip of the U.S. Constitution, but it doesn't have a Second Amendment wording in it.
Right. Where ours is very strong here in Pennsylvania. And we have guys in Pennsylvania now that are working to try to work around that and have gun confiscation in this state too, in spite of the fact our Constitution absolutely forbids it.
Well, look out there in Colorado.
Yeah.
Quick bit of research. All I know about California is that there is no provision for firearms in their Constitution. Okay. When I looked it up, there's a webpage that says state by state provision in each Constitution. And what I was already experiencing in California was enough for me. It didn't make any sense for me to bother even looking up if what they were doing was constitutional or not pursuant to California's Constitution. My research says there's no provision. They sure act like there's no provision. So that's what you got. That's why I moved.
Right. All right. Well, I know I always knew that there was 3 states that did not have a provision. I thought California wasn't one of them, but evidently they are. Maryland and New York are the other 2. New York has absolutely no provision in their Constitution. And I'm 99% sure the other one's Maryland has no provision in their Constitution.
I thought New Jersey was one of them too.
No, New Jersey actually has one.
New York and Maryland were some of the original state nations. You would think they would have had that, like Virginia did. Pennsylvania had a provision for firearms.
Right. They did at one point, but the Constitution has been revised over the years. Every 10 years, I think, or so, it can come up on the ballot. They can open up a constitutional amendment convention. They tried this year, and now it's dead. It might be 5 years. They tried this last November to have a constitutional convention because Cuomo needed that to change the Constitution, and here's why he wanted to do it. The New York State Pension Fund has between $8 and $10 billion in it, and we are probably 75% funded. So New York is not perfect, but our pension fund is mostly funded. Well, I'll say it's at least 75% funded. So where most states have zero, they've stolen every penny of it. He needed a constitutional amendment to get access to that $8 to $10 billion.
Wow.
It was voted down. They lost.
Yeah,
so he can't get it.
Yeah, unlike Pennsylvania, where it's next to impossible to get a constitutional amendment passed, let alone a convention called.
Yep.
So it's got to be done by 2 consecutive sessions of the legislature and be signed off by the governor, and then it's got to go to a referendum of the people. And I think it's got to pass 2 referendums by the people. Like I said, it is next to impossible to get anything passed in this state. Yeah. Amendment.
Well, and the problem is, like I said, I know I saw some different guys here in Pennsylvania, some different, I don't know whether they were legislators or they were senators, which ones they were, but I know we have some that were calling for some gun bans here in the state. I don't know how they're going to square that with our Constitution, but I'm sure what's going to happen is we'll have a lawyer that sues them saying that they're violating the Second Amendment. I'm positive that's what's going to happen. They'll go to a federal court and sue them, and the federal court will rule against them, and they'll all go, oh, well, we tried. I guess we'll just have to obey them now.
This state already violates its state constitutional firearms.
Right.
The minute I have to go down to the sheriff's department to get a permit to carry my firearm, is that not them asking me if I'm carrying a firearm or not?
Well, that's, again, you're correct. But we have, I know him. I know the guy I'm talking about. I know the guy that's going to sue them in federal court. I'll see him in June. And I've number of times said, stop doing this. Argue this on the Pennsylvania Constitution. That's the one that matters here. And I guarantee you, he'll go to federal court and sue him on the Second Amendment. So
yeah, because he thinks he can find a federal judge. They do this because they think they can find the one conservative federal judge that's going to rule in their favor. But what they don't ever seem to understand is you get the low-level federal judge, he rules in your favor. You know what the attorney general or the state does? They go to the next branch. Well, now you're dealing with a panel where it's normally like 6 liberals and 5 conservatives and get what they want. And if you do, by some happen chance, have the money and the time to take it to the Supreme Court, you are literally flipping a coin on some of those justices because they don't have a clue what the Constitution says. They are so enamored by stare decisis, they will rule that anything is true just to keep the government running at the same tick that it's always ran at.
One last thought on this, because we're almost out of time, Daniel. It's 2 off.
I got less than 2 minutes.
Yep. The foolishness to think that you're going to go to a federal court to get a ruling against the federal government. You're going to the very government that you're suing to rule against itself. That's foolishness. Have a good night, Daniel. Good night, Suzanne. I will talk to you both here shortly. And Suzanne, hopefully we can do a show Tuesday. Keep my fingers crossed.
Great. Good night, guys.
Good night. This has been another exciting Renegade and the Rambler show. You can find us here on YouTube. Please subscribe, like the channel. Got comments, leave them below. We read all the comments. You can find us on Facebook. We have an app. It'll say I got to change the name on the app, but the app currently will say the Renegade and the Rambler show, or Renegade Rambler Radio Network. Oh, that's why. I was wondering why the music didn't play. It helps if you take it off of mute. So,
and SoundCloud.
Yeah.
And you can find us at SoundCloud.
We have an app on the Android market, not on iPhone, because I don't deal with iPhone. I'm sorry if you got an iPhone, but I don't deal with iPhone. You'll have to look it up via SoundCloud. So, Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, YouTube, Radio Co. We try to put it out everywhere. TuneIn Radio, we're on there too. So, you can find us. Have a nice night. Look forward to seeing you again next week. And like I said, subscribe, like, let us know. Be sure to comment. Have a nice night.